So, just want to welcome you again. So tonight we've got an incredible guest, Deniz Reno, who we'll begin hearing a little bit more from in a second. But a few little ground rules before we go further. So just remember that every Monday we're here. So if you want to come and join us live, we have some seats, we have food and beverage, we have a bit of laughter, we have some lights, we have cameras. It's great. Come and grab a seat, guys. Feel free wherever you feel comfortable. And come around like 6:30, 6:45 is good. Grab some food, grab something to eat, and then you can kind of settle in before we start. Otherwise, do what most would do here in Canggu and show up at 7:01. But it's okay. We're good. They show up. That's what matters. And this platform was created about 2000, so almost about a year and a half ago. And the story behind it very quickly was Monday is the day where most people commit suicide, of the ones who do commit suicide. So there is a depth to this, right? Which is about, creating a platform of inspiration where people can see through the stories of other people, different people every week, things which they were able to overcome, challenges they faced, and how they decided not to give up, how they got through certain episodes in their life in the hope and understanding and intention that it can help and empower somebody else. So that's what SpeakuP Monday was kind of created for. This is number 72. We haven't missed a beat, so that means it's been going for a year, 72 weeks. And a friend of mine, Morten, Norwegian speaker, thank you, because he was one of the guys who said to me, Rob, you should be doing speakers at your place. It was live in Bali back in the day. So thank you as well to Morten, who was our first speaker. And look, the other thing is that if you feel after watching this, you get that little tug from the universe, right? That little tap on the shoulder of, I feel like I would love to do a SpeakuP Monday. Feel free to reach out to us. We're on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and something else which I can't remember. Reach out and just say, look, I would love to do a SpeakuP, and we'll have you on the show one way or another at some stage, right? So please don't give in to fear. If you get that tap on the shoulder, and I've seen someone here, Dennis, who I think will make a great story. So there's a few people here. Tyler's going to come again, Maria, a few of you here, which I know are going to be great SpeakuP Monday guests. All right. So without further ado, I want tonight's guest, the beautiful Deniz Reno, because I asked you earlier on, right? How could I introduce you? And it kind of went on for long enough for me to realize that the best person to introduce you would be you. So Deniz, feel free just to introduce yourself. What do you do? What are you about? What's your mission in life?
Well, I'm really glad to be here. My name is Deniz Reno. Thank you for having me, first of all. I'm a professional singer-songwriter. That's one. I've been a visual artist all of my life, and I've been working in feature film and television for the past 10 years in the capacity of a scenic artist and a sculptor. And I've also recently launched a blog called thefearlessnomad.com, which is basically a platform where I do what you aim to do here, inspire people through blog posts and through interviews with people who lead fascinating lives, and inspire other people to lead courageous and extraordinary lives through their stories. So I'm sort of a multifaceted machine of things at the moment.
And what I love about you, one of the things I love about you is that, the first time we met, maybe a little bit, as you said before, a little bit like scared or shy or something. But, watching you online, watching you go about your business, and I was also featured on one of your podcasts as well, is that, and my partner Marina, right, she's really inspired by you, and obviously she's a friend of yours as well. We see you, out there on your motorbike, traveling around this beautiful island, called Bali, living this freedom, living this freedom lifestyle of expressing yourself. And when you say that, those 5 or 6 things that you do, that you've done, that you stand for, that are part of your identity, if you want to call it that, what I love about it is that, what I feel is full self-expression, which I think is the most powerful thing that we can grasp, that we can live up to, right? So is that what you set out to do? Was that an intention?
I think it wasn't an intention, but it was something that I was innately born and equipped with. I think all of us are. I grew up in a bit of an unconventional environment. So I grew up in Central Asia into a family of 2 sculptors. My parents were home with me from the earliest age that I could remember. So I didn't have parents that had the 9 to 5. It was sort of, wake up and create all day long and go to galleries, go to museums, just express yourself and always do it authentically. So my parents weren't commercial artists. They were out to really tap into what some people call source or the universe or God and express that to, to their clients or to the people who would look at their artwork. So I grew up in that environment. And of course, past a certain point, I had to go to a regular school. So my parents put me in sort of an international gifted school, which had more of a structure. So from the age of 7, I didn't go to kindergarten. So I wasn't socialized with other children early on. I was sort of left to my own devices and given, pastels and crayons and clay and Legos and whatnot. But up till the age of 7, I was mostly by myself, learning different ways of expressing myself and creating from that space. When I did go to school, I achieved at a very high level, but I wasn't, I would say I felt very constrained by my environment. So I realized that things were expected of me, and suddenly, I went from being able to express creatively in an unlimited way to like, if you get this grade and if you do this properly, then it means that you are a person of value or you're doing well or whatever. And that really kind of put a stick in my wheels. So I thought, okay, so I have to choose to be something now. I have to choose to be excellent at something. And so early on it was arts because my parents were artists. So I achieved in arts at a very high level. Then I chose music. Then that became sort of my forte, but I wanted to do everything because I felt like, well, I love art and I love music and I love writing and I love sports. How do I choose? Because society is telling me to choose. And so when I was a teenager for a good 8 years, I was in deep, deep depression because I literally could not choose what to focus on because I wanted to be excellent, but I didn't want to give up everything that I was good at and that I really wanted to do. So it took about a decade for me to realize, hey, I can do everything. I can create a new structure for myself. I don't have to adhere to what society tells us to do, where we become a cell in this machine that benefits somebody else, So with a lot of work on myself and a lot of inspiration from other people, I realized I can be an artist and excel at that. I can be a professional singer-songwriter and excel at that. I can also write at the same time, and I can also horseback ride and skydive and travel the world at the same time. I just have to put in the effort. So it just kind of all grew. Like once I realized that the person responsible for watering the garden was me, so I had enough water for all my interests and I could go out and work on every single interest I had every single day. I realized that I can actually build my own garden. It doesn't have to be like, I choose to be a singer or a songwriter or an artist and I do that one thing. The way my brain works is I have this innate need and drive to do multiple things. So, yeah.
Love that. And so if I asked you, like, what would your mission be? What would you say, your mission in life?
I would say that my mission or my purpose is, I used to think it was to channel, whatever universal energies and create through art and music. But in the past few years, I've tapped into something that I feel like it's really powerful and it's much more important. Is I realized I'm really great at connecting people and I'm really great at creating platforms which showcase other people's talents, which is really funny because from the age of, I would say 2 or 3, I was taught to excel at my own talent and that I had to compete with others to be the best. And then now I realize that my purpose is to actually use the attention and the platform that I'm getting to showcase other people and to lift them up and to inspire them to be excellent and to tap into their greatest potential. So I think with the Fearless Nomad, I'm so in love with this project because it allows me to do that every single week, to share people's stories and to kind of take my network and the attention that I'm getting as an artist and be like, look, this person has an amazing idea or an amazing story, or look what they've been through. Because, I mean, each of us has an incredible story and we can inspire a lot of people, but I'm just one story. There's hundreds of thousands of incredible personalities out there with just absolutely amazing stories that can inspire so many people. And I've sort of made it a part of my mission to seek those personalities out and to somehow help feature them in their stories. So,
got it. Thank you. And there's an irony here that I'm feeling, right? So, but I just want to go down this road. So would you describe yourself as an introvert, extrovert, or something else when you were growing up? Like talking zero to 7.
I would say when I was growing up, I was definitely an introvert. I wouldn't say by choice. It's just because I've been, like, my parents were so incredible that they were always living in their art. So when my father was sculpting, to today, he leaves this planet. There's a body working on a sculpture and he's not present as a human being or as a parent. Same with my mother. They were incredible parents, but during those 8 to 9 hours a day, there were 2 bodies around me creating these incredible works of art, and I was sort of given all these amazing tools to create something on my own, but I was left to my own devices. So I would say that I'm more of an introvert, but once I started socializing with other children and seeing sort of how, you know, the social hierarchies work and how the world works, this extroverted side started coming out of me because I started seeing solutions to problems that other people couldn't solve. And because I think I played a lot of puzzles and Legos as a kid, I just would spend hours on like working out solutions. And so my brain works in a way that I can come into a team or come into an organization and there will be something going on that people can't solve, and my brain just connects everything. And I'm like, I've got a solution, guys. So I guess the extrovert comes out and then it starts kind of like leading the project or whatever. But I would say I'm both. I do love spending time on my own, though. I can do this for a week and then I need like 3 days on my own in the jungle just to like recuperate.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, the interesting thing is that I refer to myself as an extroverted introvert or an introverted extrovert, right? But for you, I get the link, but because there are some people here watching this, right, who maybe are introverted and perhaps see that as a disadvantage sometimes. I see it as an advantage, by the way, but some people see it as a disadvantage because they want to be something else. But you bridged the gap, introverted, extrovert. So what was, if there was, what was the switch? What was the switch? Any experience that comes into your mind? So what was the switch that allowed you to go from one to the other?
I would say one of the first major switches were me observing my parents' work and realizing their genius and how, because they were both introverts, that hampered their ability to connect with clients to their maximum potential. So I grew up and I realized, okay, it's not enough to be a creative genius. It's not enough to have all this talent. You have to be able to translate it to the world. You have to be able to connect with people. Otherwise, it's just there and it's sort of getting wasted. So I think that was the first switch that made me go, I have to actually, I have to be both, because I can't just foster ideas and create things and then just leave them. I have to be able to then build the circuitry around the idea and to take it to fruition and make it mean something in the world.
Got where the drive came from. Wow, that's amazing. That's really cool. Yeah. And so you spoke before about connected to source, which is a topic which I love, right? So if I say to you, you know, like connected to source, you mentioned that your parents were connected to source and you brought it up within your life. So when I say connected to source, what does that mean to you? and how do you connect with that?
Source for me is that magic that makes us us. Like, I feel like we're all obviously human. That's what we identify as. We all have bodies, which I think, I like to think of us as biological robots, but something I believe powers that. And it doesn't have to necessarily, I know that, you know, some people are touchy with the word God because it's been associated with organized religion and whatever you want to call it, God, universe, source. There's something electric, something mystical powering these vessels. And I think that that something is the source of all great ideas. It's the source of all great art and sculpture and aha moments. And I feel like through practices like meditation, for example, you can tap into that within yourself. So, and I'm a big believer that obviously all of us possess that. So I don't think that, you know, some people are born special and, you know, there's a Gandhi and a Princess Diana. I feel like we all have the potential. Some people might grow up in an environment that's conducive to unlocking that potential faster, but I believe that all of us are capable and all of us are carriers of source. And source is where we get all of our inspiration, all of our energy from. Like, it took me years to realize that. And once I realized that, my ego, when it comes to my own art, just kind of went away, because artists and sculptors and musicians, we tend to have a little bit of a, you know, I created that. I have a great voice, or I have a great sculpture or a great idea. And now I'm trying to explain to everyone that it's not you. Like, it's you, but you're a tool, you're a vessel. Your job is to get out of the way of source expressing itself through you. The more you involve your ego, the harder it is for source to express, because it's such a pure energy. So once you start thinking that you're the creator of anything, or you own anything, or it makes you somehow better than other people, that's when you get blocks. You get writer's block, you get creative blocks, you start being insecure about what you're creating. The biggest lesson I've taken away in the past few years is get the hell out of your own way. Like, just let the energy do its thing. Just be a tool, you know, nourish yourself, educate yourself, work on your whatever singing technique, painting technique. So fine tune your instrument, but get out of the way when it needs to express itself. Don't question it. Don't question if it's good enough or who needs to hear it. If there's a calling, and I think we all know that moment where you go, I need to, don't block it. Just let it go.
Cool. And it's interesting. So some people here know this already, but before I do anything, I'm a coach as well and a few other things. But before I do anything, so I'm on the grass over here, wherever I am, and I'm 3 deep breaths. And then imagine white light coming down from the sky, coming right through me. And the prayer which I give is, please God, help me to be of best value to the room or to whoever I'm coaching, to whoever's going to see this, right? And the idea behind it is just that, to get myself out the way and to remain in flow. And the questions, that's why we don't rehearse any of this. So the questions drop in, and I trust it now because it's been a few times. And but I love the fact that how you connect those two. And even as, you know, you've worked for Warner Music, you had all the success about it, but for you, from what I can see of what you just said, is that you're still in that place of understanding that it's me, but it's not me. It's just me channeling source. And all I have to do is just remain congruent to source, really, and look after the instrument and fine-tune the instrument. But at the end of the day, it's flowing through me. Love that. Really cool. And so getting a bit darker. So what was the darkest, and the first thing that comes in your mind, the darkest experience that you've been through, and how did you overcome it, if you overcame it?
Oh, wow. That is deep. There have been quite a few. I feel like I've had an absolutely extraordinary life, but I've had to fight for a lot of things. Every year since I was born, there was something that I had to overcome that made me stronger and made me into the person that I was. And whether it was growing up in Central Asia and just the constraints, the social constraints that came with that, because I'm trying to I'm trying to give the best possible answer to this, but I'm going to go general, so not one specific event, but the place where I was growing up. So I grew up in Kazakhstan. My mother is Russian. My father is from Azerbaijan. Those are two very different cultures. So the people that I grew up around were either Kazakh, so of Asian descent, or they were Russian, because Kazakhstan used to be a part of the USSR and sort of like a Russian colony, if you say. So growing up, I was very different from the kids around me. I was a minority in that respect. So I was growing up with Russian friends or Kazakh friends. I didn't have a single Middle Eastern friend, so Azerbaijan is part of the Middle East. And from a very young age, I realized that I was being treated differently because I wasn't Russian or I wasn't Kazakh. It was mostly because I wasn't Russian. So I wasn't accepted at school in a way that my peers were, and I could feel because it was of the way I looked and because people knew that my parents were from these two different cultures. It was something I couldn't explain. All I could identify with is that I didn't feel good enough. So it made me work harder. It made me work harder on my grades, on everything. And I was excelling above and beyond kids my age, but still I wasn't chosen for whatever, whether it was a beauty contest or to be an ambassador for the school or whatever. There was no reason that somebody would not choose me to be in a certain position, but I would be looked over because they would either pick a child that was of Russian heritage or of Kazakh heritage. And I constantly had to deal at the age of 7 or 8, I had to constantly deal with remarks from peers sometimes. And I went to a really great school. I went to a British private school, but still there was they would call me things based on my heritage. So I would say stemming from those experiences, I grew up with a sort of a chip on my shoulder thinking I have to prove myself because I don't fit in based on something I can't control, and therefore, it's and to this day, if I go to Russia, I don't look like a typical Russian person. So I've been in situations where I've been called I don't want to say it, the F word, and then Middle Eastern or whatever. So, and the funny thing is, if I go to Azerbaijan, I'm also not accepted because I'm not as ethnic, not as conservative, and so I would say that was part of the undercurrent of my upbringing of feeling like culturally I never fit in. But the upside of that is that I feel like I'm a world citizen. I identify with my environment everywhere I go. I can live in Toronto like I have for the past 20 years. I can live in Bali. I can go wherever and feel at home because I've made a home in myself. So now when I go to other cultures and live in different countries, I don't have an identity. I can't say I'm Russian, or I can't say I'm Azeri or Central Asian or whatever. I'm just me. And I've turned it into an advantage where I can then connect to different cultures because I don't identify with any place in particular. So I would say that that's one of the earliest memories I have of overcoming a dark experience was just being judged based on my heritage, even though, and people are not aware of this because they're like, well, you're not a different race, like you're the color, like you're white, so why would you? I had so many people call me, like, say to me that I have a white privilege, not understanding that I'm a child of immigrant parents that grew up in a place where I wasn't like anybody else in my neighborhood. So yeah.
Got it. Do you love yourself?
Yes. Now I do. Yeah. It took a while, and it's still, I feel like loving yourself is a muscle. You have to exercise it because it's so easy to slip. We're so inundated with stimuli outside of ourselves, a lot of it riding, a lot of marketing efforts ride on the fact that we're going to make you feel not good enough, so you purchase our service or our product. So you constantly have to work on that I constantly have to work on that. I don't think there's anything I could achieve in this world that would like cement that fact for me. Like, I love myself forever. It's something I constantly have to work on, but I do in the depth of that statement, because now I realize, you know, there was a couple of years where I had a big personal tragedy happen, and I just kind of stopped doing everything that gave me value before. So I stopped being somebody, singer, songwriter, artist, whatever. And I came out of those 2 years loving myself like I have never loved myself before, having been stripped of all this doing, because I just did not feel like doing anything anymore. It's like my reason for living had gone away. So I just stopped. And then I just came out of that period going, I love myself for the first time in my life. And yet there's nothing I can say I can love myself for. And that was the brilliance of that moment, you know?
Yeah, it's amazing. Like, you know, I love that. Like, it's last week we had a black guy on the show, and it was interesting because we got into racism, and we were very open about it. You know, a guy called Olumide. And the interesting thing is that people do sometimes think that it's this thing about black and white, when it's actually not. There are lots of different colors to it, and there's you know, it comes from ignorance for me personally, right? It comes from ignorance and fear, right? The opposite of ignorance is knowledge. The opposite of fear is love. So with love and knowledge overcomes all, right? In my belief system, and hearing you speak, you know, and you love yourself, right? It's such a powerful thing, and what comes up for me is that, you know, the reason why you're able to fit in anywhere is because of that fact, right? Because when you can accept yourself for all the things that you don't like. I grew up 2 children's homes. For those who know, I was the only black kid at school for 13, 14 years. In the children's home, it was pejoratively black, but I had Caucasian standards, so I didn't love the way I looked. I wanted a nose job, lip job, all the jobs. I wanted to get it all done at once, as soon as possible. Contemplated suicide, all the rest of that. But the interesting thing is that, you know, the minute that I started to accept what is, things began to change. So I haven't suffered from racism for 20 years, right? Not because racism doesn't exist, but because I have knowledge and love, which is actually empathy. So then, because that's not part of my belief system anymore, it stops showing up. You know, and I hear this in you, right? And I love hearing it. I think it's a really powerful thing right now, especially now. For anyone who's watching this, whether you're here now live or whether you see this on replay or whatever, to hear that, because for me, you know, like, unity is wisdom. Disunity is weakness, right? Because when you split and you start to categorize people, there's a friend of mine who's gay, and he was saying to Rob, first we had gay and straight, then we had gay, lesbian, LGBT, and all these different groups, and they're all infighting. What does that breed? It breeds disunity, and disunity means it's easy to then control. But when we have unity, I was talking to 2 beautiful men over here before, and I was explaining that, you know, one of the things which I love is that understanding of unity is wisdom, or unity is power, because we all have our own unique story, which is incredible and beautiful. And I love this show because each week we have different people with different stories from different walks of life, different ideologies, religiosities, and backgrounds, but the message is the same, right? It's the things that make us unique is beautiful, but also we have these similarities which we have in common, which are quite a similarities, I guess. And these things are what unify us. And if we can feel those, see those, act upon those, be the change that we want to see, like, there's nothing that we can't do together. And that's one of the unspoken messages of what Speak Up Monday is actually about. You know, one of the deeper outlying messages that I love. So thank you for being part of that and being vulnerable and open to that process. I love it, right? So thank you for that.
Of course.
All right, so the chip on your shoulder, do you still have it?
No, I don't. I really don't, because I realized that with the whole, you know, nationality, cultural, and wanting to fit in, I realize, the two cultures that I'm from, they're very powerful. Had I been born to one side of that, had I been born just Russian or just Azeri, these energy pendulums, as I call them, are strong enough that they can suck you in and assimilate you and make it very difficult to relate to other cultures and nationalities. And there's almost like there's such national pride there. And I witnessed that with, some members from both sides of the family. There's such a strong identity with who you are. And I feel like that's beautiful, but for the purpose that I've been put on this planet, I think that would have been a detriment. So the fact that I kind of, popped out and felt, like where do I go? Where's my home? And it was sort of everywhere because it was nowhere. That became the biggest gift.
Like fly on the wall, like what you're saying earlier on about wanting to prove yourself, right? Not feeling that you're enough, having this beautiful life at home where your parents are empowering you with all the powers of connection to the one. Full self-expression, 0 to 7, that theta brainwave state we're all, where these sponges for knowledge and whatever's around us without having any way of stopping that coming in, and we just take it on board, and we either genetically programmed and we go on that way, or we try and fight against our programming and all the rest of that. But what I love about your story is that, because you've achieved a lot, right? And you pushed yourself, and I get where that came from, right? During that time where you're saying you didn't feel like you were enough, and having that drive, right, I'm gonna do this, right? And just that pushing you through. And then also, having the awareness, now of realizing that, hey, I'm both, right? And that helps serve my journey. Actually, it was perfect for me to serve my journey and my purpose in life. And I get it, and I see it, and I honor it. I cherish it, and I love it, and I get on with it. I'm in action, right? It's amazing. Really cool. Really, really cool. And so then, kind of moving forwards, so the things that you've achieved, what are you most proud of and why?
I would say I'm most proud of my music career. Just because visual arts and sculpture was something that I was born into. So I was a child of two well-respected, extremely talented sculptors. I was a child artist from the age of, I would say, 3.5 or 4. So my parents actively encouraged me to paint, and then they would take my paintings and put them in galleries or museums. So from the age of 4 till 10, I was a working artist. I was making money with my art. And my parents weren't the type of parents that were we're going to drive our child to have this career that they don't like. I love doing that. They just had the connections to be like, okay, you're done your 20 paintings. Okay, we're going to take them to the gallery. If they like them, we'll leave them there. So I had that career, but it came through nepotism in a way, right? Because I inherited the genes. I never had to, I can sit down right now and draw a photorealistic portrait having never studied, the technique, because it's genetic. And I'm fully aware of that. So I was blessed with that in my life. And also that grew into me having a career in film as a scenic artist. I applied all of those skills and I got myself a job in film and television. And I excelled at that. And that set me up. And so I'm fully aware of the blessings that I've been given in visual arts. Not that I didn't have to work for it. I had to work for it very hard. But with singing and songwriting, first of all, English is not my first language. So especially with songwriting, I had absolutely zero natural talent in it. It's something that I had to work on for about 10 years every single day to be able to write songs that I was actually happy with. Singing also, I believe I inherited the voice gene from my grandmother, because nobody else in the family sings. But from the time that I decided that I wanted to be a singer, I was about 13 or 14, I had to fight tooth and nail because I didn't want to just sing or to go to a bar and, to sing. I wanted a career. I wanted to be a recording artist. To be a recording artist takes such an immense financial investment, because to this day, it costs at least $2,000 at least to record one song. And that's if you wrote it yourself, if you're there co-producing it. And I didn't have that kind of money. So from the age of 14, I had this dream, like, how do I get into the music industry? How do I afford to be able to go to the recording studio, which I couldn't do. So I thought, what am I going to do? So I was in high school, and I thought I could work for a record label and learn the ropes. So I went to my co-op teacher and I said, you know, can I get an internship at Sony Music? And he kind of looked at me. He was like, you're crazy. I'm like, why? They're like, they take university graduates. You're not going to be able to get in. So I made him promise. I said, if I get myself a job at Sony Music, will you sign the papers? He kind of was like, yeah, whatever, go away. So at lunchtime, I drafted a resume, and I had been working since the age of 13 as like a receptionist at a gallery. And like, so I had a little bit of administrative experience of like 2 years. And a really big mouth. So I went to the offices of Sony Music Canada, which were about 2 kilometers away, and I walked there because I didn't have enough money for the bus fare. So I walked into the lobby and I looked at the lady and I said, because I did my research the night before, I was like, what department can I fit into? Like, what skill do I have that they would need? And I thought, nothing like even remotely came under my skill set. So I thought media relations, because art and stuff, right? So I was like, okay, media relations. So I walked in. I was like, here's my resume. I would like an internship in media relations. And she looked at me and she's like, this is amazing. I'm like, what? Should I leave? She's like, no, our intern quit today. Do you want to meet like your supervisor? You can start tomorrow. I was 16 years old, scared, but with a really big smile because I was so excited. So I got hired that day, and I came back to my teacher and I was like, here's the paper, please, for God's sake, sign it.
What a great story.
So I got an internship at Sony Music Canada. I learned the business of music. I learned how to do publicity, the marketing, like everything basically that you pay a lot of money for as an independent artist to be able to like put your music out there. I also learned that the music industry had nothing to do with music, that literally it did not matter if you were talented or wrote good songs or had a good message, which at the time, it demoralized me, but at the same time, it made me make a choice. Like at 16 years old, I was like, now I know the reality behind like what we're fed. Do I still want to do it? And the answer was hell yes. So I learned the business of it, and afterwards, like a couple of years later, I started making my first like demos. They went absolutely nowhere. I went to Los Angeles thinking like I feel like everybody I know has this thing happen to them where you want to be a singer-songwriter, you have your first demos and you're like, this is great. Like these 3 songs are going to get me signed. And then you go and people don't even want to hear them. Or like you go into the offices of whatever label and they're like, yeah, you make this type of music, but like you don't look the part. Like to me, they used to say to me, like, your voice sounds like you're a 50-year-old black woman. How are we going to sell you? You're a 17-year-old white girl. Like, so I heard so much, like I've been through the ringer, like the horror stories from the entertainment industry where you knock on, like I remember being in Los Angeles and like knocking on the doors of like publishing companies so they would accept my demos and like listen to them. So I got to Quincy Jones's office and he had 2 pit bulls that like belonged to his assistant behind the gate, and the gate was like cracked open. Those dogs almost tore my like knees off. Like they were so vicious. And then out comes his assistant and she's like, we have like 1,000 like young whatevers, like just get out of here, like you need a meeting. And I was like, but I read on your website that you accept unsolicited demos. So like I had so many of those experiences where like doors would just get shut and shut and shut, and like I just kept on going because I love, like there was no other way for me. I'm like, I'm gonna do this. And the amount of like, as a young female, especially being like 18, 19, 20 years old, you walk into the record label. I was scouted by producers from major labels and invited into studios where I would get so excited and I would come in with my songs and like, okay, when can we start working? And the guy would turn around and be like, oh, you look so sexy. Oh, do you want to like bend over and show me how cute your butt is? And like so much of that it became so normal that I almost became okay with that. Like that was the price of trying to make it in the industry. I would never let them cross a boundary with me physically. Like I would never let anyone touch me, but I got used to the sexual innuendos and the remarks and, oh, you're so cute, you're so pretty, and this and that. And that took another like 6 or 7 years before I met people that were willing to work with me for the merit of my talent instead of how I looked. And then I started, I would send out hundreds, probably thousands of demos at this point and get rejected and rejected and rejected until a label would sign and license the track. Another label. I would use that to contact bigger artists and being like, can I do a feature with you? I had to buy, because I couldn't afford to record myself professionally, I bought a laptop and a good mic and a preamp, and I learned how to do it myself. So I would record my vocals in a bedroom closet and then work with like producers that would be willing to work with me on feature tracks. And we would somehow make it happen. And the first 2 tracks I signed were to 2 major labels. They were recorded in my bedroom closet. The first cover that I did was a deep house version of Wicked Game, and to date it's got like 16 million streams on YouTube alone. That was a bedroom closet recording. Like, so everything in my music career I had to fight for, and nobody helped me, nobody held my hand. I had no contacts. My parents didn't know anybody in the industry. And it was just like knocking myself against walls constantly. But eventually I got to the point where I started making money with my music. I started working, like right now, the next 3 singles I have coming out are with a Grammy-nominated producer, remixed by another Grammy-nominated producer. There's like Marilyn Manson's like producer is willing to work with me now, and it's amazing. Like, but it took so much work.
What kept you going? Because I mean, everybody here. One thing, just to give you a breather. So we're here at Tropical Nomad, Speak Up Monday. If you got any questions, guys, about 5-10 minutes, we're going to hit the question button. If you haven't, that's okay. And so just want to thank Itchy and Bella from Tropical Nomad, who are doing all the tech behind the scenes here. We've got Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, some other tube I've never heard of. It's pretty cool. I used to do it on my phone with like Hangouts, and it would drop out all the time. It was like, what am I doing? I have no idea. So thank you guys. Really, it's big time appreciated. Thank you so much, Itchy and Tropical Nomad. And the reason why I'm laughing is because you don't know what's going to happen next.
What's going to happen?
I'm gonna save it for 30 seconds. Everyone here is going to be super happy about it, and you may or may not be. I don't know. We'll see what happens. So I was in Milan, and I worked with supermodels as a model, right? So Naomi Campbell, Evangelista, Herzegovina. I got real lucky, but I saw the background of the industry. I worked with some of the best or the most famous models in the world, right? And I got a really good understanding of how that industry works. I'm not going to talk about it here, but I get what you're saying about you going with a certain idea about how it works, and it doesn't work the way that you think it does, right? And then you need to make a choice about what you are prepared to do and what you are prepared not to do. But what I love about your story is that you never stopped going forward, right? So what was it that kept you going?
I think since I was a kid, I had this freight train mentality when it came to things I really loved and believed in. There was something in me, and I think that it's that source that was just like, this is yours. This is yours. You have something to share. And the few times in my life that I doubted myself, someone would come in right away being like, Denise, sit down. I need to talk to you. Don't you dare stop. And I saw that as signs, So to me, all those instances of, these men trying to get somewhere with me because I had this dream and take advantage of that or whatever, the rejections, like that put like Pertamax fuel in my fire, It was like really, really, I would get upset I would get angry, and then I would feel this just like fire rise up in me. And that's the most powerful way you can get me to move, is to tell me I can't do something. Like, if I really believe in myself, and that's why, you know, there's been times where people tried to, like, whatever, discourage me, or I've maybe had like 2 or 3 haters in my life. I think they were all like ex-boyfriends, ex-girlfriends, or something like this. But it's like, if you want me to move, if you want me to succeed even more than I do currently, challenge me. Because it's like the switch comes on and it's like the train starts moving.
and like, would you say that because I was about to ask you, dropped in, where did that come from? But in a way, I think what you mentioned earlier on about that time of not fitting in, having to prove yourself, needing to prove, I think it comes from that. Is that where it comes from, or is it somewhere else, would you say?
I think not as much. I think it's my dad. I think he has some crazy gene, like literally crazy gene, because I feel like in a way I'm like reliving his story, because he was an Azeri who had to fight for his dream in Russia, where he was like the enemy, or in Kazakhstan. So I feel like my dad is this unstoppable like freight train. So is my mother. Like, seeing them stop at nothing. Like, I had people come up to me, you know, throughout my career and be like, what makes you think that you can, like, I remember my first ever boyfriend was like, 1 million, like, girls want to be a singer-songwriter. What makes you think you're going to make it? And I thought, because I'm lucky enough to have been born and conditioned in a family that did nothing other than what they loved to do. So you know how we get conditioned before the age of 7, and that becomes our program that we run. I grew up with parents who were doing what they loved to do. So I, in a way, didn't know better. Like, it was a real revelation to me that you would be forced to do something else and then like chase after your dream. I was like, no, I'm going to do this. Like,
I love that. And so there's 2 questions. One, I want the audience participation. I need your help, right? And you'll know what it is in about 45, depending how long it takes to ask the next question. Motherhood.
yes.
This is my Aussie. What do you reckon? Because look, what I see here, right, is a beautiful woman who's in touch with her spirit, in touch with source, right? And like, I just think that you'd be an amazing mother, right? Because you've learned this and you've realized the theta brainwave state. You've realized all of this. You've come in a way full circle. And I think probably the most powerful thing that we can do, at the age of 12, people here know this story. Those who don't, I'll say it again real quick. Age of 12, I was in history class. And we're talking about the 100 Years' War, which is a war going on somewhere in the Middle East, of which there are many going on in the world. And kid at the back of the class puts his hand up and says, Miss, yeah, 100 Years' War, yeah. Can't be the same people fighting, can it? Straight over my head. Paraphrasing, what they were saying, what they meant was that, you know, it's what as a parent or a caregiver that I'm passing down to my kids, 0 to 7, is what they believe and come up with, unless something happens in their life for them to stop and to think, why do I think like this? Why do I act like this? Those sorts of things, and this unconscious bias that we develop, that the RAS continues on, is the way we're going, right? So for you, what I see is an amazing opportunity for an amazing being to pass on something really cool, right, to the next generation. That's the reason why I ask you.
Well, that's very kind. Thank you. I always said there's never been an urge in me to become a parent. It's never been, especially as a woman, I've never looked at children and been like, I'd like to have one of those. They're wonderful. I've always thought, I leave it up to life. Like, if it's meant to happen, I will meet somebody wonderful and capable of being a good father. That's very important to me. But also capable of accepting and nourishing who I am, because I realize that it can be quite difficult to be with. I will say this. I have in the past been attracted to men with dominant personalities, and have found it difficult for a dominant personality to also be comfortable in a relationship long term with another dominant personality who's a female, because usually it's like you have to have a balance, right? But I would definitely, I would love to have children someday. For now, my children are my projects. For now, I kind of I use my blog to spread the knowledge and the love. But to be honest, I have a 9-year-old brother, so I've seen a child be born and grow up very close, which I never anticipated I'd ever have to do, and it gave me such a powerful insight into just what it takes, how much it takes. All the information I know today about how, you know, children's brains are conditioned and what it does, and the kinds of wounds that you can grow up to possess as an adult that will take you like decades to unwind if you say a word wrong to that little child at an inopportune moment, that will lodge that into their brain and create their like adult, you know, program. It's so much responsibility. So it's not something I would take on lightly or want to do unless I was like my parents, where I could be with them. Because like right now, understanding how the brain works and the fact that we're okay with like sending our toddlers away to wherever, like daycare or preschool or school, or to be conditioned before the age of 7 by other people, is terrifying to me. You know?
Got it. As a parent, and I'm going to get onto this thing, as a parent, all that I would say, and again, it's one person's opinion, that's it. All that I would say is, you know, I've met people, my ex-girlfriend, so we were together for 20 years, and, you know, her brother ended up dying from cancer in a really weird and crazy way, and she took it on board that this is my opinion, I'm not saying it's the truth, she took it on board that, because she was really spirited, and she took it on board that, you know, if I was the mother of my brother, I would never be able to cope. I would never be able to do it. And one of the reasons why we didn't go much further than we did, it was because I wanted kids and she didn't. Part of it anyway. And, you know, so the thing which I'm being led to tell you is, you know, like, you don't have to be perfect, right? So me, I grew up in a kids' home, 18 years, right, of bullying, racism, sexism, classism, a whole bunch of other stuff, crazy stuff. Yet, all it did was inspire me to do more, to be more, right? To bring people together, to be a force of nature. I didn't have a perfect upbringing. Actually, not having a perfect upbringing inspired me to be greater than what I might be able to become. So whatever happens to you, I'm just saying, don't let that be an excuse. Because, you know, already, and I love this, already, right, we've gone from, no, I wouldn't, to, well, I've studied a kid's brain. I've done it. Is everyone getting this? It's like, for a woman who hasn't thought about being a mom, she knows a hell of a lot about the brain of kids.
It's because I always want to do everything well.
You see? Like, so...
I don't want to half-ass anything, especially a child.
I love it, right? But you
can all see how much damage that can do, right? You know?
But you don't have to be perfect. You know, and what I'm saying is, don't let that be a block for you, because you have so much beauty, so much soul within you to give, right? Like, this other stuff, don't even give it any time. You know what I mean? And
this is my mother talking through me. Like, this is the way I was raised. My mom is like, okay, we've got to gift a child. We have to like do this and that, and to do that so she can do that. And like, this is me right now.
Yeah. So there's something there for you. That's all I'm going to say. Now, who wants to hear us sing? I can't hear you. I can't hear you. Yeah. All right. She didn't know this, by the way, and that's what I meant about 10 minutes and 15 minutes ago. I know. It just popped in. It's like, ask her to sing a song. So look, you've been outvoted. So honey, no pressure, right? I know you got this.
Bit.
I know you got this. So like, I'll give you 30 seconds to think what you'd like to sing. So while you're thinking about that, and thank you for being a good sport, and thank you for we have a studio audience here. Remember, if you want to come down and bully the guest, please do it. Come down, bully them, right? Emotionally, socially, whatever you want to do it, it's fine, because they can take it. I love you for that. So so every Monday, right, 7 o'clock, but come a little bit earlier, right? Have some food, have some drinks, Tropical Nomad, and come and join us. So after this, if there's any questions, we'll check online as well. See if there's any questions, feel free. Remember, no question is too silly. No question is like, oh, I can't answer that. You please put up your hand. Itchy's got a microphone and he'll run it to you. With the microphones here, by the way, if you talk like this, you can't hear, you need to turn the microphone towards you. These microphones are very directional. Just a little tip there. So now, Deniz, I'm so glad you're on the show. I love it. I love it.
It's one of my favorites.
All right, let's hear you in your own time.
Summertime and the living is easy. Fish are jumping and the cotton is high. Oh, your daddy's rich and your ma is good looking. Hush, little baby, don't you cry.
Beautiful. Round of applause. Woo.
Thank you.
Getting little. Woo. Wow, you're feeling that too?
I love jazz.
Yeah, I love jazz too. Like, I love the bebop era. Bird, Coltrane, all of those guys. Favorite era. I love Bitches Brew, Miles Davis. Like, there's a few things in there that just There's a guy called Guy Chalkley. His dad is a guy called Keith Chalkley. Keith Chalkley was a percussionist who played on the road with Dizzy Gillespie and all these greats back in the day. So Keith Chalkley, percussionist. And when I was about 12, around that kind of age, a lot happened at 12. When I was 12, I had this guy called Guy. Guy.
Awesome.
I know. It's like, really? Are you serious? I'm serious. A guy called Guy. And he was like a beatnik, you know? And he was like, Rob, do you know how to listen to music? I was like, yeah, sure, I know how to listen to music. He goes, do you really? I said, yeah. He goes, you don't. I said, okay. And he took me around his house one day, and we're listening to this vinyl, puts it on, and he's like, okay, isolate. It's like a quintet. He goes, isolate each instrument and tell me what it's doing by repeating the melody or repeating whatever it's doing. And I was there, I was like, I went in confident, and I was like, all I could hear was like, that's all I could hear. Couldn't hear the dung, 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 dung. I couldn't hear anything else. And it's like, Rob, you don't know how to listen to music. And the next, I think, 4 or 5 months, religiously, once or twice a week, I'd go around his house. He had this small room, wall to wall, in vinyl. And he would just pick out stuff, play it, and we'd sit there for like an hour or more and just go through music. And he taught me how to hear. He taught me how to listen to music. And then later on as a dancer, then I was able to tune into whichever was playing. It was rock, pop, jazz, indie, didn't matter, because the construction of music is the same, right? It's break it down to its constituent elements and then bring it all together in a way that we say in jazz takes your balls off. Like, it's just,
totally.
Boom, it pops, right?
Like,
so,
sorry, go ahead.
No, please. So when you sing, what happens for you?
So the way it started was when I was literally probably 2 or something. I was in my parents' art studio, and they would listen to these incredible records on vinyl while they were painting or sculpting or whatever, like full blast. So I experienced music as vibrations. Like, I remember they listened to a lot of Pink Floyd. So I remember the dung 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 dung, like all these tones that just ripped through my body, and then I felt sad or happy or like, it's almost like music taught me how to experience emotions through sound. And when I was a little baby, my dad actually produced these tapes like a few years ago. He was like, look, I told everyone you'd be a singer. I'm like, what? Like, what do you mean? And so he produced these tapes. It was 4 months old me in my crib singing. And they weren't wails. He's like, listen, listen, listen. So I'm listening to it, and I'm literally laying there, and I'm doing this. Like, it blew me away because I have no recollection of this whatsoever. And you can hear him in the tape being like, she's going to be a singer. I'm like, wait a second, but then you made me be an artist? Like, yeah, so it's my earliest memories of music were how it made me feel. And then I thought, wait a second, I have a voice, which means I can make other people feel things and like translate messages. And that's where it started. Just listening to opera, listening to classical music, which I still love, listening to jazz, and like now I now I write pop music and like dance tracks and electronic tunes, but my love is always with like Italian opera and classical and jazz, and because this is music that is so multi-dimensional. It makes you feel on such a deep level. It's just like I cry when I listen to classical music. Like you put Chopin on and I'll like wail, you know? So imagine what that does to your body to be able to evoke such a powerful emotional release. You know, music is amazing.
And so genetic or in vitro listening, you know, there's this concept of, you know, when you're in vitro, when you're in your mummy's tummy, whatever's going on outside in your outside environment, there's research now that proves this to be true. Whatever's going on in your outside environment, right? It's like when you, as a dad or a mom, you know, a potential or new dad about to become, when you, I did this with our second child, right? So what I did was I would talk to my partner's tummy, you know, and I would just talk to my kid, you know, like whatever was coming up. And I would just talk and I would talk and I would talk. And then boom, I'll go away. And then repeat it the next night. Not regular or just whenever it came up. And when our baby was born, the second one, and then mum, my partner, was taken off to have some more procedures done, you know, then the baby was placed on my chest, right? And obviously you got no top on because it's skin to skin. And the most interesting thing happened, right? Because the baby was crying. Now you can, maybe this is just me getting over imaginative or overthinking it, but the minute that my baby was put onto my chest, but the minute I don't remember what it was, but I said or sang something to my Almira, our second kid, which I used to sing to her when she was in vitro, she immediately calmed. Yeah. It was crazy cool, you know. So in vitro, do you think this came from that area or?
Well, I've two things. I've seen that happen with my brother because my mom listened to a lot of my jazz covers when she was pregnant with him, and to this day now he doesn't, like, he still loves the music, but when he was a toddler and he would have, you know, breakdowns or whatever, if he listened to a recording of me singing Ray Charles's Georgia, he would just go silent. Like anything would be going on, he'd be like, oh my God, and then my mom's like, Georgia, Tashi goes silent and just like meditates and falls asleep. So I've seen that happen, and I realized where that came from. For me personally, because when my mother was pregnant with me, she was living with my dad at his art studio. So we have still to this day have this giant art studio loft, and that's where my parents made all their sculptures and paintings. And so it was a loft living space / their studio. And this is really funny. To this day, one of the most calming sounds or environments I can be in is a construction site. Because in vitro, I was listening to my dad polishing bronze sculptures all day long, which sounds a bit like dentist's office, but like 10 times that. So think of the sound of someone cutting granite with a power tool or polishing bronze, or like the sound that most of us would be like, oh my God, get me the hell out of here. When I hear that sound, my entire nervous system calms down. It's the strangest thing. So I'll walk into a construction site, like working in film, and hear that noise. And I just understood it 2 or 3 years ago, why it didn't bother me. It's because I grew up with it. And chances are that when my mother was pregnant, I heard that on a daily basis, like power tools and grinding stone or grinding bronze or whatever. So I don't know about, they probably played Luciano Pavarotti because I grew up and I loved his songs. That's how I got into my school, because my the school that I went to, you had to pass, like at 7 years old, you had to pass exams to go into a specialized program, which was either dance or music. Yeah, dance or music. So mine was music. So I had to sing Italian opera to get into class. And yeah, so they listened to opera, classical music, and the grinding of power tools.
Look, so one of my last questions now, guys, I'm going to give you a chance now to ask any questions after this question. So last question from me, you know, like, so you've had clearly an incredible life, and you know, there's a lot of things in there which have resonated true for me, or just resonated with me, and I'm pretty sure that there's a lot of people here that resonate with that. I love the unity aspect of it, of growing up not one nor the other, and learning how to love yourself and being comfortable in your own skin. And because you are that, wherever you go is home, and you make it that. I love that. I think it's amazing. And that frequency that you're giving off is just attracting us to you. But I also love the fact that it didn't necessarily come easy. You know, there were synchronicities, absolutely, but behind this all is a person who's doing the work. You know, is a person who's like sharpening her tool, right? Who's taking rejection and all the rest of that, but just powering through and not stopping. Love that, right? And there's a bunch of other things I love as well. But for you, so is life kind of predestined, or do you have control over it?
I feel like it's both, because I now understand that, you know, the frequency that we carry, our subconscious beliefs, they create our daily life. And those subconscious beliefs, that program gets programmed into your brain before the age of 7. So if you're not aware of what it is, then you can say your life is predestined and expect all the things that are going to happen based on what program you're running. But that's the beauty of life, is you have the power to learn about what that program is and to change it. And it takes incredibly hard work and dedication, and you know, you have to police your thought processes and really work on yourself. But that gives you the power of creation and the power of somewhat having control over your life. So I believe it's both. It's, you have no choice. You have no choice over what you're born into. I know some people may disagree because, you know, if you believe in souls choosing what you're born in, I believe in that. I believe that we choose our parents and our environment and whatever lessons we need to learn. But if you don't believe in that and you think that you have no choice into being born a certain way into a certain environment, that's fine. So you have no choice. So then, to a point, there's a set of building blocks that you have to work with, and maybe that becomes your life and your future. But then we have you, and you took control, and you created, and you used the tools that you were given and the advantages, disadvantages that you were given to create something different, to create something massive. And the thing is, I believe that if part of your purpose is to lead in whatever way, you're not going to have an easy life. Because in order to be able to sustain and be responsible with and hold the space for a platform where you're leading people with ideas or with knowledge, or providing a platform for others, you have to be so strong on so many levels. You can't run the risk of your ego being a part of it at all, because you'll destroy yourself, you'll destroy others. Well, we've seen world leaders who can't control the ego aspect of it, like countries fall, you know, humanity falls. So I feel like if it's in any capacity you're calling to lead, you're not going to have an easy life. You're going to have a life that polishes you over and over and over and over, to be able to be grounded enough and anchored enough and to be able to hold that space. Because if you don't have that, it's easy to run away with whatever happens. You know, to be a strong leader, you have to know all sides of what life is like. And a lot of times life is not easy. You have to be able to relate and to identify to people. You can't be necessarily born in, you know, a great family with a silver spoon in your mouth, not ever know challenges, and then help inspire people who were born with nothing, like how are you going to relate to that, you know? So I feel like every challenge that I went through was given to me as an immense blessing to be able to understand just what it takes, just what it's like to be able to relate to as many sides of life as possible. So that's my answer.
Love it, love it, love it, love it. And I did say no more questions, but one popped in. So, so sorry, guys. I'm not really. So 3 steps, if you can do 3 things that you did to learn how to love yourself.
I'd say the most powerful would be going back into my childhood and analyzing how I received love in my childhood. And this was the most powerful because I realized that even though my parents did the best that they could, the love was conditional. So I was praised when I would achieve. And the standard was very high. And it's not that they didn't love me. Like I was told by my mother, by my dad, that they loved me, but the precedent was that you achieve, you do really well, you get love. But don't dwell on it. Because if you dwell on it, then you'll lose it. So there was that, and I realized, okay, so the love was conditional. Therefore, growing up with that as my program, how would I act? Like, to what detriment is it? And then realizing that up until, you know, a couple of years ago when I had those 2 years where I just stopped because something happened, I was constantly driven to achieve and achieve and achieve. And it's like, you know, maybe if I do this, then I will love myself. That's what it comes down to, is maybe I will love myself if I achieve this. And then past a certain point, you're like, well, damn, like there's a lot of achievements. Why do I still not love myself, right? So that was one, to realize the program that you were born with that I just spoke about. The second was to stop doing everything you're doing that you believe will bring you that love. Like if you're a business person or if you're a beauty blogger, whatever it is that you're doing for validation to be able to love yourself, you have to stop doing it. Not forever, but just for long enough to realize that that's your medicine, that's the drug you're taking. Like we all have different drugs, right? For some people it's relationships. It's like I constantly have to have a boyfriend or a girlfriend or whoever, right? For a lot of people it's career. Like, we all know people who are like, I'm too busy. I'm too busy to do this. Oh no, I can't do that because I need to work on that. Like, you have to watch that because that's the medicine that you're giving yourself because you're hurting. Like, you have to just stop. And you can do it. Like, the world will not fall. I promise you, if you just stop what you're doing. But that's the only way you can heal yourself, is to literally take the drug away, whatever it is, the relationship, the alcohol, medicine, work. It's the thing that's so insidious with work is that we don't look at it as a drug, but it's the most powerful, potent, crazy drug there is. You know, to overload yourself with work so much that you don't have to sit with yourself and face yourself. So number 2 is strip everything. Get out, leave your phone, leave your laptop. Stop doing, start being. You will go crazy, and that's your ego going like, you're taking away my value, bring it back. You know, you will fight yourself. So the antidote to that was meditation. For me, it was literally like, stop and meditate and sit in the pain and sit in the discomfort, and I promise you, you will freak out, you will cry, you will lose weight, you will gain weight, you will, like, until the withdrawal is over, things will happen to you that you do not want to ever experience. But that's the price that you pay for getting to the core where you're like, I'm nothing. I can love myself. I still am. Because like everything we do are stories, right? Like I'm a singer-songwriter, whatever, editor, like blah, 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 blah. The list is endless. I can win a Grammy. You can invent the next Facebook. That's a story. It has no inherent value unless you give it value. And if we allow those things, those stories to become our identities, that's dangerous. Because then your value who you are is attached to this other thing. And that's what most of us do. And we're not even aware. Most people will go their entire lives without being aware of that, ever. So number 2 is to strip. Like, not forever, just for long enough that you can separate who you are from the thing that you do that gives you value, and to start valuing yourself for just being. Like, you can be no one, and society will not tell you this. Society will be like, well, you haven't like, I grew up with that, you know, Denise, if you don't study, if you don't do this, if you don't do that, you'll end up washing floors at a supermarket. So now I realize that. So, like, that's so powerful. When I was a kid, that was terrifying. Imagine saying that to like a 5-year-old, and then the 5-year-old is like, oh my God, if I end up in like, oh my God, then I'm worth nothing. But it's just a story. Like, one of the smartest, most like deepest people I've ever met in my life was in an alley behind a New York City club. I had just received a phone call in 2010 that my grandmother died, and I freaked out and I ran behind the club, and there was a homeless woman there, and I started bawling my eyes out. And in that moment, I realized like how ridiculous that was, because I was dressed in like expensive clothes with like money in my pocket, and I was completely like annihilated. Mind you, yes, my grandmother had just died. And then this woman comes up to me and she's like, daughter, what's wrong? And she hugs me, and I let her, and she just talked to me. And she talked to me about life and wisdom and value and comfort and support. And here's a person that, you know, the society I grew up in would be like, this is what you end up if you don't achieve, learn, whatever, you know? And yet here was like one of the most unforgettable souls I've ever met in my life, that I will never forget her. Like, one of the most valuable encounters in my life. So everything we do is a story. Like, it's what value we put in it. So strip yourself of like everything you're doing. If you can, even for a day, to just like unplug and like pretend that you're not this like awesome startup entrepreneur or like artist or whatever, just do it. It's the best thing you'll ever do for yourself. And I don't know, number three is practice doing that over and over again. Because again, it's like, it's a muscle. It's not something that you can just like go and do a retreat for like 3 weeks and then you're cured and it will never happen again. I'm sorry. It will happen over and over again, and you won't even notice yourself slipping, because old habits die hard. Sometimes they don't, like, everything in our brain is a neural pathway, right? So if you're used to a certain way of being, that's a highway in your brain. That's the easiest way to get from A to B, and you will keep on using that highway until you pave other paths and repave them until they become stronger and stronger and stronger. So you at least have the option. So,
thank you for sharing, honey. And one thing comes up for me is that a while ago, a friend of mine, it's all this thing about not being enough. We don't feel like we're enough, and we externalize that in different ways. And what he did is that he put on his mirror, you know, I am enough, in lipstick, or it was, I am enough, and just left it there.
I've done that.
Yeah, right. Very powerful process. Very powerful.
Because it's your subconscious brain, right? It's like right now we're all sitting here and like our conscious minds are on, but your subconscious controls you, and the subconscious perceives messages in ways that we don't notice. So that's why, you know, subliminal messaging in like ads, you have like 24 frames per second, and then one will be like Coca-Cola, and suddenly you're like, I want some Coke, you know? Like, so it's, yeah, because you will walk past that message saying I am enough, and it might be silly, but like, trust me, if that thing, or your vision board, like for a whole year, 7 years ago, I had a vision board on, my whole wall was a vision board. It was pictures of things I wanted to achieve in my life. By the end of that year, most of them came true, because I realized that past the first 24 hours, I stopped paying attention to my wall. So like, my subconscious was constantly aware of the wall and aware of the messages, and it just found a way to make my conscious mind get to those goals. It's super powerful.
Wow. Thank you, honey. I'm going to give you a little break. Any questions? By the way, I know we've had quite a few questions today. Got a question at the back. So, Brother Itchy, oh my man, Trevor, didn't see you there. Welcome, brother man. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, my question is actually like, what would you recommend for advice to someone who's trying to start out producing music from zero? I'm just basically doing it for the love, not for commercial, but I think eventually there would be something that would be commercially viable. But just starting out from the beginning, what would be your suggestion?
First of all, just start, because the thing that I'm sure you run into and I ran into and everyone I know runs into is, how do I do it well? And you just have to start. Like, you just have to start doing it for the love of it. That's the most important part, because the moment that you decide that you're doing it for the money, like, just stop, because it's one of those industries where if you're lucky, and it's one of those things where if you're doing it for the love of it and what you do resonates with people, like, it will resonate with people automatically, so you won't need to think about the money part. But on an average, it takes, for, I would say, a band or a singer-songwriter, like, we've calculated on an average it takes about 8 to 10 years for an act to go from, like, I just started, to I now play, like, sold out shows at small venues and license my songs. And there are exceptions, but I would say learn as much as you can about production. There's so many tools available, like whatever you're using, Ableton, Logic, Pro Tools. If you can't afford to take a course, you can learn everything online. Like, some of the most amazing producers that I've worked with, they were self-taught. They were just at their laptop every day, chipping away. And just, yeah, build your sound libraries. Don't get too hung up on trends. Like, ask yourself why you're doing what you're doing, and then just do it for the love of it and do it consistently. And, you know, Will Smith and Harrison Ford once said this, and this actually helped me so much. They were like, it's not that we were like the most talented or good looking or the best or whatever. We were just like the only ones left because everyone gave up. Like, that's what happened to me. Like, I wasn't the one that was chosen out of my high school show choir. Oh, she's going to be a singer. She's going to be, like, great. She's going to have all this success. No. But I was the only one who didn't give up and who kept on going. And so if you start, like, even today and you keep going consistently, you will see results no matter what. Like, that's the beauty of it. If you consistently work on whatever it is, it's just inevitable. Like, if you start writing a book, you will one day finish it. Yeah, so that's it.
Are there any maybe later you can share some links online to, if there's some particular one direction where you could recommend, maybe someone online that has got some tutorials? Or
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
and
that'd be cool
I have some wonderful people that I could point out as mentors, and I'm sure that if you ask them questions, they would answer them, and they're amazing. And yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
So any other questions, guys? Yep. So just over here. Oh, Anna. Hello, darling. Welcome from Ubud. Woo!
That's it.
Anna Kadek. Welcome.
Hi. I would like to ask, you as an artist, how you see yourself clearly. You know, because sometimes you just have to stop what you're doing. You're doing so many things, and you're like, okay, what am I? Or I'm doing the right thing. You know, what's the signs and that you're going the right way?
You know, it's funny because I've tried to do that over and over again, and then I realized that every time I tried to do that, I got frustrated. So I'm a person, and people, most of my friends think this is like extremely dangerous, but somehow I survive. I'm an intuitive being, so I make most of my decisions by feeling. Like, I don't, it's just the way I am. I've always been like that. It's used to drive my father crazy because I sucked at chess. He was like, I was like 5 years old. Think about your next move. If you do this, then this will happen. And it's like, I just can't. So I don't necessarily stop. I just pay attention to, I try to keep my instrument fine-tuned, like healthy, and like nourish myself well, and read good books and whatever. And then I trust my intuition and my feelings. If I feel like I need to write a new album tomorrow, then I sit down and do it. If I feel like for some reason I'm being pulled towards my blog for 2 weeks straight, I don't try to fight it. I just do it. because every single time I tried to stop and kind of like see myself clearly and define myself, I would freak myself out. Like it would end up in like anxiety and what am I really doing, and no one else does this, everyone just has like this thing that they do. And I just realized that, you know, if some of you have read the book or seen the movie Divergent, where you're supposed to be like one of the things, but then there's some people who are like all of the things. So I try to just at this point make peace with the fact that my brain just fires in multiple directions, and the only thing I can control is doing things well, and just giving my best and allowing myself to do that. Yeah.
So what's intuition for you? Just how do you tune into your intuition?
It's easier when I meditate every day, but it's I would say I'm an empath. Like I feel things in my body. So if I walk into a room, say, and like even somebody wants to talk to me, I'll feel it. Like my body just turns towards that person, and I feel it in my body. So the way I listen to my intuition is it shows up physically in my solar plexus. Like I just feel this like boop, and it will usually be paired with an idea. Like I'll see a vision in my mind that goes like, you need to reach out to this person who does this and then interview them for like next week's, and I will feel it physically, like I need to go do it. So I just listen to it and I just go do it. And that's the sorcery is what most of my life is based on.
Thank you, darling. Thank you. So any more questions, guys? Yep, at the back. Is what Ichi there and Bella? Yeah. Hello.
Hi. Can you hear you?
Yeah, we can hear you.
First, I want to thank you so much for the interview. And I actually recognize myself in you when you were talking about your childhood and how people were judging you because you're half Russian. I'm also half Russian. And I can understand how hard it was. My question is, you told before, like before you started to be a musician, you were trying to go to new places and asking like giving your music, right? Like and all the guys, didn't take you serious. They were trying to do something with you. So like how like of course you're a beautiful girl and like everybody trying to take advantage of it. So my question is like, how did you survive this thing? How you didn't give up? And like how did you find a way actually to let people find let people like how to say it in English to see who you are, not from your beauty, like from what you do, like yeah, because it's really hard for a woman.
There's a couple of things. One, it made me very angry. Like I remember being 15, 16. It made me livid that people, because I knew that I had talent and I had something to offer, and I knew I was a really hard worker. It made me very angry that all of that would be completely ignored in lieu of how I looked or what somebody wanted. Like it made me physically like furious. So that's one. The second one is because I came from a family with a Middle Eastern father, especially, who was like super liberal because he was an artist, but super conservative in a way, like how women should be treated and like respect and like how you carry yourself in public. And so I grew up with like a militant father in that regard. And so being in an environment where I would be treated like that, it made me angry. It also made me like realize that I could never compromise myself in that way, no matter how much I wanted to be a singer-songwriter. If at the end of the day somebody told me that I had to sleep with somebody to get there, I would have to give up my dream. And I didn't want to give up my dream, so I had to find then a way to make it. So it was just the stubborn belief, well, we have to find another way. I have to find another way. I have to do something else. And it was just, you know, every single time I would be treated from that angle, it would just be like, how dare you? I have so much value. Like there, it was just like an inner, I guess it was source or an inner voice. Like, and it happens to this day. It's not like it's something that was left in the past. Like it still happens. I can walk into a room where nobody knows my body of work and still be judged by like being a woman or the way I look or whatever. Now it doesn't bother me so much because I know what I am and I know my value and I know I have a billion other options that I've created for myself. One of the ways I took my power back was to not rely on people, because if you're walking into a label and they're your only option, that's the PowerPoint where they operate from. That's how people take advantage of you, not just in a way that like, oh, you're a cute girl, and like they can take advantage of you from the perspective of, we'll give you a really bad contract that only benefits us because you need us. So when you're dealing with the entertainment industry, people are very aware of how much you need them and for what, and 90% of the time they will use that against you. So you have to position yourself in a way that you have enough knowledge and you have enough self-respect to be able to just turn around and walk away. Doesn't matter why. And also on top of that, if we go really deep and really spiritual, I believe that you attract your environment. So if that still happens to me to this day, I kind of like go and I meditate and I think, what part of me is attracting this sort of treatment? Like, what part of me still thinks that my value is based on how I present or how I look or whatever? So there's more magical ways of like flipping it around if you're into meditation and spirituality. But yeah, it's just those two things. I'm going towards my goal no matter what. I can't compromise my morals and values. So we have to find another way of doing it. And that all the drive and fuel for that comes from how much you want it, how much you're in love with it.
So yeah, never give up, and
you just never give up. That's it. You just never give up. You can just keep on going. And it's like, to this day I get rejections. Like, it was funny. A couple of weeks ago, a song I co-wrote got licensed to Netflix twice through a publishing company that would 1 year ago not answer my emails. And it was really funny because I sent the email with my work. And so 2 weeks ago, they got back to me and they were like, oh, hi, blah, blah, blah. Can you please sign these contracts? And I know that now they need me to sign the contracts so they can make their money. So I shot back an email like, thank you, so nice to meet you. Oh, by the way, you never answered my email, which they're fully aware of. So it's this like game that, you know, you'll find that the longer you're in the business, you'll come across the people who said no to you or ignored you or rejected you, but now they need you for something. And it's a really funny thing that happens where you get to it's like chess. You get to be in a position of power and then understand that it's all just a game. Like, people are just trying to make money. Your job is to just love what you're doing, regardless of that entire game.
Wow. So it sounds like, you know, how do you deal with rejection, right? So what I can see is that, or feel is that, you know, the rejection for you is that I'm doing what I love and I believe in myself, right? And so I just keep on going, because at the end of the day, what you've shown is just through that diligence of just keeping on going and just outlast, right? Keep on going.
It was literally because I grew up watching my parents, like, there would be great times when they had clients and everything was great and we had money, and then there would be like 6 months out of the year where there would be no sales. So there would be no money. So we had to leave our city home and go live in the country, which I loved, but I didn't realize that we had to go live in the country because there was no money for food, because we were living off the vegetables and fruits and whatever we had planted on the land. Like, I was not aware of that. But I never saw my parents go like, I think I need to do something else now. Right? So the money wasn't the factor. It was like the thing that came after doing what you love. And if it came, it was amazing. And you were super grateful for that. But I grew up with this idea that money doesn't decide what you do or how. It's like a secondary thing, you know? But you choose what you love, and you are devoted and married to that for the rest of your life, because that's your purpose. And why would you stop or do anything else? Or so you find a way. you just keep doing it no matter what. If you're successful, freaking awesome. If you're not, keep going. Yeah.
Beautiful. So, any more questions, guys? Yeah. Great.
Hi, my name is Andrea. I heard you write poems too. I wanted to ask why you write and if you can read one.
Oh my gosh. Oh, you trickster, you. Hi, Andrea. So poetry is a recent, I would say, gift or talent that I've unlocked. Because, I'm a songwriter, but it's different. So I had tried to write poetry before in the years prior, and it just didn't come through me. And then I think it was 3 months ago now, 3.5 months ago, I was in Uluwatu, and this poem just channeled through me, and it just came through. Like, I didn't force it, it was just information. And I was holding on to this poem, and I thought, oh, I would love to share this with people, but like, where do I share it, blah, blah, blah. And then I came across Andrea's poetry page. And I thought, who is this human? And I went into his stories, and it was like, oh, we're having this speakeasy open mic, come and share. And it was just, for me, it was like an intuitive, like, go. So I showed up, and everyone expected me to sing because I'm a singer. I was like, no, I'm going to read the one poem that I have, and that's it. And that was 15 weeks ago, and I had been going to that open mic speakeasy. It's called Voices Unleashed. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about it, every single Friday. And it became my inspired job to write poetry every single week. So I would write about 3 poems a week, and then I would share like 2 of them on Fridays every single week. And it's been such an absolute gift. Like, to me, it reiterates the fact that it doesn't matter who you are, where you are, how old you are. It's like, sometimes we just unlock new talents. Like, you could wake up, any one of you, tomorrow, and if you're not already an artist, you could be called to paint, and that could, I know that for Andrea it was the same thing. Like, he was doing breath work, and then it was like, you need to write, and then he started writing. That was 2 months before we met? In January, exactly. A person who was not a poet is now an incredible poet because he listened to the intuitive voice that was like, you must do this. And if you guys want, I can read you the first poem that I ever wrote.
Yeah, I want to hear it. Let's do it. I'm sure.
It doesn't have a name, but it's basically, it's about what it's like to be human. What is this life? Did I choose to come here, or was I planted? Will I leave this planet rich or empty-handed? What is the purpose of all of this? Is it better to dive deep or surf the surface? Is it wise to search for the answers to the meaning of life, or should I just be content with one day becoming somebody's husband or wife? Should I choose a religion or pledge my allegiance to a specific region? How can the search for clear vision cause so much damn division? I just don't understand why anyone would treat a woman different than they treat a man, or how the color of your skin can prevent some people from giving a damn or inspire partition. Love is love. Hate is a contradiction. When did we forget that joy and acceptance of all of this earth's children was part of the human condition? Open your eyes. We've been fed so many lies. We think we're free, but we're slaves in disguise, shackled by what we believe in. Politics, wars, and fear are not the world I choose to live in. Stay conscious and focus, for what's deep inside always comes to the surface, and the God inside each of us knows this. What you believe in is what you attract. How powerful you are is not a question, it's a fact. So take the time for self-reflection, because the truth is, we all need connection, not just with each other, but first within ourselves. The biggest threat we face is ignoring our own mental health. So believe in yourself. Believe in the beauty that can sometimes seem stealth. Believe in the magic of the life you've been given. Make an effort to create a life that's worth living. You are responsible for what you become. So reach for the sun, be the light, be the one who in the face of hate shows compassion. Don't let ignorance dictate your reactions. Let love always be the source of your actions. Then you can never go wrong. redefine, reimagine what it means to be strong, and know that you're never alone because we're one and this world is our home. Thank you. So that was the first poem I've ever wrote.
It's amazing. Holy shit. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, Andrea. Thanks, brother. That was beautiful. Like, my mind was trying to grasp onto... It's like...
But see, this is what I mean, because when
Lovely.
when I was sitting in Uluwatu and I was listening to this beautiful piece of classical music and this just like overwhelming emotion just took over my body, I felt the words coming. It was like a waterfall. And I just turned off my brain and I just wrote it all down. And then I realized once again that it's like, we're vessels, we're tools. The information comes through if you welcome it, if you allow it. So it's not like I don't consider it as like I wrote something or I wrote something that's good or whatever. It's like I allowed something to come through, and the first few times that I read it back to myself, I cried because I thought, how cool, like it chose me, you know? And that's how most artists are. It's like you're chosen for some sort of an expression, and it's such a cool feeling when it comes through.
So there's two things. One from Trevor. In the group Speak Up Monday on Facebook, if you could write the contacts, but also write that, if you could leave a copy of that poem,
Okay.
that would be awesome. It's beautiful, honey. Like, it's, yeah.
Thank you.
Like, so many things in there that just resonate and just kind of move parts of me. And I'm sure they move parts of everyone else here as well. It's a really great thing. Wow. Thank you.
Thank you for having me here.
Wow. Well, that seems to be a natural place. In a minute, I'm going to ask you for some closing words. Right? Just whatever comes in your mind, something you'd like to leave with everybody here who's either watching this live or replay or however they're going to see it. And so, firstly, I just want to thank everybody for coming. And everybody who's watching this, feel free to share it. If there's something in there that is driving you, compelling you to share it, share it. If there isn't, don't. It's okay. But thank you for coming. And just remember that every Monday we have this. Next Monday is a guy called Monty Hook, an Aussie. At the age of 8, I think he had his first business. He's an amazing guy. Monty Hook, so was featured on the front cover or feature article in Forbes recently. A real brain. He's living here in Australia. Sorry, he's from Australia, living here in Bali. Monty Hook, Hooke. So he's here next week. So feel free to come. And again, it's not necessarily about business. It's about the person. So for those of you who may watch this for the first time, it's not about, patting someone on the back or kind of blowing wind up their ass because they're amazing humans. It's more about getting to grips with who they are, and in a way why they are, and what we can learn or see or be reminded of out of that process or out of whatever comes up. Nothing's ever scripted. It just comes in and it gets asked, right? So that's it. And someone asked me the other day, what is my vision with Speak Up Monday? I don't really have a vision necessarily. But my feeling is that I would love it to be a place where people either just come or tune in, not caring who's on. I love you. It's not that I don't care about you, right? But they just know that there's going to be something there of value. Value in the sense of it's something which either reminds them or moves them or compels them or shifts them in a way that maybe they weren't expecting, right? That's what I love. What I would also love is this whole area here at Tropical Nomad just to be full, right? But it's just about value at the end of the day. So that's that. Now, if you're one of the people here, and I can see a few of you already with my eyes closed, because I feel you, that it's like, I'd love to do a Speak Up Monday because I have something to contribute. It's not about ego, it's about contribution and just being honest with that. Now, you can be famous, not famous, doesn't really matter. But if you feel, hey, there's something I'd love to contribute, and you don't even know what it is, you don't have to know what it is, put your hand up. Get to me via Speak Up Monday group, Facebook, Instagram, whatever it is. You can find a way to get to me, maybe in the WhatsApp group as well. And I'd love to explore that with you, right? So just keep that in mind. And finally, before I pass over to you, Deniz, for the closing words, just again really want to thank Tropical Nomad. This is a great collaboration, which I love. Itchy and Bella, really doing some incredible things. We started off some weeks ago, with just like a little baby, and now each week we're kind of growing into this. Don't know, but we're growing into something, right? And we try different things, and we just keep moving it around. It was over here, it's over there, it's over here. Now it's in the garden. Next week, I don't know where it's going to be. Probably in the garden, right? But I love that, this exploration of just adventure, and seeing where we end up. But we go with this pure intention of, let's just give value. Let's just give something that people get something from. And they're able to take that into their day, into their week, into their life, pass it on, keep it themselves, whatever rings true for them, that's it. So long as we give what we can, that's it. The rest will take care of itself. So thank you. And lastly, before I hand over to you, thank you, right, for being, I met you, we had a really good chat, about the book. We're not going to talk about that, right? Beautiful way to meet. But I just want to honor you, right, for being the vulnerable, beautiful being that I see, that we all feel, right, and just living to that, and just being completely congruent with who you are at all times. It's amazing. I know we go through our things because we're human beings at the end of the day, but you've been such a light for so many people, men, women, all sorts of people who are watching this who
Dogs.
get to see it. Dogs as well. It's funny, I was going to say dogs and cats. Someone was like, you can't say dogs and cats. But okay, dogs and cats. Right. And I love that. Right. So just thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me here. Thank you all for coming and for listening. I guess for closing remarks, I would just like to not say or teach. I would like to remind you of just how powerful every single one of you is. And I don't mean that lightly, because all these world leaders, all these people that you look up to as mentors, they're also just one human being. They were also once a baby. They also had their stories. They grew up in a certain environment or whatever. And because they believed in themselves, and sometimes you can't believe in yourself. Sometimes you need people to help you believe in yourself. But because of that, they became the bearers of truth. Like they became what I consider like first-class vessels for spreading light and spreading source and inspiring other people. That is within every single person in this room. Like that potential, that power is inside every single one of you. And whatever you do, don't ever forget that, and don't ever give up on that. Whatever you choose to do with that light is up to you. Even if you don't have like great ambitions to change the world or whatever, just the fact that like, please live every single day with that self-love, that self-realization that you're so worthy, that you are enough, and you don't have to be anything or anybody or please anyone to be that. You are already, like, that's the beauty of it, is you are this powerful, worthy, incredible human being. Everything else is a game. Treat life like a game, and then it becomes super fun. And then the challenges, you see that they're there to make you stronger, because there are certain things that you're about to be given that you're not yet strong enough to handle. And that's why the challenges are there, to help polish you into that person that will be able to handle things like big success. Like, success is not an easy thing to handle. And part of getting to that success is building the muscle to be able to bear the weight of it. Because especially in the entertainment industry, like, I've seen acquaintances receive success and receive fame too quickly, and they weren't able to handle it because the person inside still thought they were unworthy. So what happens? Drugs happen, alcohol happen, suicide attempts happen, all these things happen because the growth did not happen before the weight of the world watching happened. So life is this beautiful game. It's full of challenges. Like, things happen. Like, you lose people you love along the way. 4 4 years ago, the man I loved, my fiance, died in a base jumping accident. You know, things happen. We don't all have flawless lives. You sometimes, you know, listen to a person's story and you think, oh, well, but you were born in this environment and that make you really, you know, like creative or successful or whatever. But then they don't tell you the full story. So all of us have the challenges. All of us have the pain. It's how you handle that and understand that that's just a story. Like who you are, that source, that God energy within you, that doesn't change. So play the game, enjoy the game, derive the most value you can out of the game, and realize how lucky you are, you know? And that's like my blog, thefearlessnomad.com. It's about sharing stories of people who don't give up, who keep going. Their stories are incredible. People have like survived cancer, they survived poverty, they survived everyone slamming a door in their face, and then they became a world champion athlete, a tech entrepreneur, a filmmaker, a famous stuntman. Like the point is not the destination. It's not to become someone famous or someone well known or to earn a lot of money. It's the journey that you respect yourself for not giving up what you love. Who cares if you don't make a dime being an artist, you know? Like, no, I think Picasso made money while he was living because he was a good business person, but everybody else didn't. Like their paintings are now being sold for like $25 million, and their lives while they were alive, they couldn't even afford to buy food. But these people did what they loved. They gave their all. They created these incredible works of art that only 100 years later are now appreciated and valued. But it doesn't matter because that's what they love to do. And that was the value of their life. So don't forget the value of your life. And just as you are valuable. You don't even have to do anything. Like, you're powerful, you're valuable, you're beautiful, you're strong. That's all there. That's the tools you got to work with. What are you going to do with that? Enjoy.
Round of applause, guys. Thank you. Oh, wow.